back for Arfield. 1-0 Burnley. Scott Arfield. He's been threatening that recently. And all the Burnley players run to the Darwin end.
Burnley win the next ball. It's Rory now. On the outside. Decent.
Barnes! He got it! Ashley Barnes with it! What a cross from Rory! And there was Ashley Barnes! And Burnley leading the derby.
Knocks it quickly. Finds Benson in space at the byline. Can Burnley get a goal here? Back for Brown now. Saved by the keeper!
Burnley won it to the end! That is magnificent! They deserve that!
On it by Forfantella. Off for a hat-trick.
He's got it! Hat-trick for Nathan Teller! Oh, he's on fire at the minute! 3-0 Burnley! It's Nathan Teller's day!
And Burnley are 3 up here. Fantastic derby. Here's Benson. Can he go on the outside? Comes inside. Top shot.
Oh, the goal! Manuel Benson once more! That is top class! Burnley have done it! Fantastic! Clarets deserve the championship title. They've been the best side throughout the campaign. Burnley have won the second tier. What a fantastic achievement. The players have been magnificent.
Yes, hello and welcome along to the latest instalment of the Turfcast podcast pre-game show with me, Joe Redmond, ahead of Tuesday's massive clash against West Bromwich Albion at Turf Moor. But as we get into the business end of the season, to be fair, they are all massive now. And of course, Leeds slipping up at the weekend gives us a little bit more of an incentive to try and keep the pressure up on the top two. Yes, Sheffield United may have won. Thanks, Preston, for nothing. But Leeds United slipped up, so it brings them a little bit back in. I do, though, despite all the banter I've been giving out on social media and saying that we're going to catch him and things like that, I would rather have the Leeds United running than our running. But anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves slightly. Let's win on Tuesday night first here. And of course, as usual for the pre-game show, I always get a fan of the opposition on, and I'm pleased to reintroduce Chris from Albion Analysis. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, not too bad, pal. Yourself?
Yeah, really good, mate. Really good. Looking forward to the last 10, 11 games, whatever it is now of the season, especially with Leeds slipping up yesterday. Maybe, just maybe, their bubble is about to burst again. But if I'm going to be brutally honest with you, I still think Leeds win the league.
Yeah, I think I do as well.
The two.
Yeah, they're look. I think over the course of the season, they've probably been the better side out of everybody. Yeah, they've had a little wobble. And, you know, you never write anything off with Leeds, but if I was backing anybody to get the results between now and the end of the season, it would definitely be them. I do agree with I know you obviously wrote the opposition view for us on our Substack. Yeah. I do agree with what you said about Sheffield United, that they seem to be getting results without convincing in any way, shape, or form. I don't think Leeds in the end will be catchable, but I do think Sheffield United, I wonder how long they can go on playing only okay, if that, or well in, or even well in spells, and not getting results. I know you said thanks Preston for nothing, but I watched the highlights of that game. How on earth they didn't get something out of that game?
They should have had a penalty. Should have had a penalty for a start. I mean,
and hit the post as well.
Yeah. I don't know what it is with Sheffield United. I don't want to get ahead of myself and turn into a top of the table debate, but they've been doing it all season. And I just think that they're just not necessarily lucky, but there's something about them to be able to do it all season.
I don't think it's luck, mate. I think it's a similar thing to you guys before you got in a bit more of attacking reinforcements in January. That if you've just got that little extra bit of quality in your squad this season, this division isn't that good. And not a lot of teams have got that X factor player. Now we're fortunate; we have got a few of those. But I would suggest Middlesbrough have as well, with or certainly did when they had the likes of Ben Doak in the team, and Finn Azaz and people like that. But I don't, and maybe Norwich do with Borja Sainz. But there's not, once you get beyond that, there's not many teams in this league that kind of have that X factor player. And really, I think if you can, you can play out a very even game and just win it by having a little bit more quality than the opposition. I think it's what you did earlier in the season, and I think it's what Sheffield United do, because they've got so many centre forward options. They've got Hamer and they've got O'Hare. They've got Raksaki. They're ultimately, I think their quality just edges games for them, but I don't think that they're not. Leeds stuck 7 past Cardiff and stuff like that. Sheffield United are not this blow teams away kind of an outfit.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I do agree with the point that we did rely a little bit more on individual quality earlier in the season, and were playing in a similar way, if not a little bit more structured at the back. But anyway, let's move on from that. We're here to talk about West Brom and Burnley. Let's talk about your season so far then, because currently you are just inside the playoffs in 6th position. Part of a group of teams that I keep looking at and thinking, does anybody want to go up? Because Middlesbrough look like they were, going to be the team, and then they've absolutely catastrophe, and they're looking like they might be finishing in the bottom half at this stage now. Blackburn,
you say that they're only 5 points off. They're only 5 points off.
They are, but obviously they're looking over the shoulders now and losing at places like Swansea. Famous last words: "We play Swansea at the weekend down at Swansea." You're not going to get top 6 like that. But West Brom now, despite your recent defeat to Blackburn, which obviously are a team up there, since then, 2 wins, 2 draws, and you look to be steadying the ship a little bit. So it's looking like you could potentially be that final team in the playoffs. What are your thoughts on the way the season has gone so far?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I mean, to your point of if you lose at places like Swansea, you're not going to get top 6. I don't agree with that, to be honest with you, because I think I just don't think anyone's got any consistency. Coventry,
I agree,
and Bristol City have suddenly strung a run together, but once you get outside of those two, there's not a single team below that hasn't lost in the last 5 games. Outside of Coventry and Bristol City, and we're included in that as well. We're unbeaten in the last 4, but we lost 5 games ago. So there's nobody's putting together any real consistency. Cov have of late with 5 wins on the bounce, but then again, how many of those have been last minute goals, and how much can you actually continuing? I was watching the game in the concourse. Before we played QPR, and to be honest, I thought they looked nervous. They sat back. They let Stoke come onto them, and Stoke are not a good team. And to be honest, when Stoke got it back to 2-2, Berger has that back heel that goes just over the bar, and Coventry just as easily could have lost that game as won it. So whilst Coventry have won 5 on the spin, I don't think they're convincing. Bristol City, if João Pedro doesn't get sent off at the weekend, do they get anything at Hull? Probably not. It was at Hull, wasn't it? But there's nobody really convincing. In terms of ourselves, you're right. We have steadied the ship a little bit of late. Look, we kind of went through what you'd almost expect us to go through. We changed the manager, not through our choice, through obviously Corberán going to Valencia, which you can't blame him for. It's his hometown, and the chance to manage his hometown club in La Liga, you can't hold that against him. But and to be honest, we weren't winning loads at that point. But we had when he left, we'd only lost once since the 1st of October, which is absolutely crazy. And he obviously left on Christmas Eve. We've lost a lot more games since then. We've lost 5 games, which is more than we'd lost in the whole of the rest of the season under Corberán. So we've become a bit easier to beat at times, but we've also won more games. We drew an inordinate amount of games under Corberán. And we've obviously won 4 under Mowbray, which is decent. We've steadied the results a little bit, as you say that the defeat against Blackburn, we were absolutely terrible. We were awful at Plymouth when we lost as well. But since then, we went to Millwall and showed some real heart. We steamrolled Oxford, and how it was only 2-0 with a goal in the last minute is anybody's guess. Leeds to be honest, like despite Junior Firpo coming out afterwards and saying only one team tried to win that game, I don't know what game he was watching, because I thought we were actually more likely to win that game than they were. And Tom Fellows breaks away at the end and takes a better touch, and we probably go home with a 2-1 win. So I actually thought there was a tiny little bit of me that was a little bit disappointed with a 1-1 draw at Leeds. And then we beat QPR at the weekend, which was a funny game because we were terrible, really, first half, and we got a penalty, which was kind of a bit of a get out of jail free card.
Yeah.
And then Darnell Furlong gets sent off. I maintain it's not a sending off, but then I've not seen a camera angle that would allow us to appeal it, so I don't think we will. And then we just dug in, and like, to be honest, QPR played 45 minutes against us, 11v10. And they only had one chance worthy of the name. They had a header for Sato who right in front of the goal, but besides that, they didn't have a chance that was over 0.03 xG value. So to not give up any chances when you play 45 minutes with 10 men, was brilliant. And I think what you've seen from Albion, you look at the Leeds game, you look at the Millwall game, and you look at QPR, and what I've seen is a more dogged Albion, an Albion that has showed itself prepared to dig in. And I think, the constant inclusion of Jason Molumby has been massive to that. And the benefit for you guys is that I don't think he will play on Tuesday night, because he's one booking shy of a 2-game ban. And obviously the amnesty comes in after our game on Tuesday night.
Yeah.
So I think Mowbray heavily suggested in the post-match press conference that he would rest Jason Molumby because he can't afford to lose him for Hull and Norwich.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's interesting. Sticking with the playoffs debate, I completely agree. There's just no, but that I was flippantly trying to say sort of like nobody is consistent, and that's the point. Like every time you see a team, like now you are the team that looks like you will now just dig in and stay in that 6th position, but you'll be the 3rd or 4th team that I've said that about this season who has then faded away. Fingers crossed for you, Udo. But why do you think all the teams in that playoff race are so inconsistent? You just think it's the championship being the championship?
I just think it's a really even league. I don't think, I know obviously everybody jests about, oh, nobody wants it and all this sort of thing. I just don't think there's much between. Look, it's very clear that the top 4 are a little bit better than everybody else. That's why you're that amount of points clear that you are. But then you go down this league table, and even from us in 6th down to even down as far as sort of Cardiff in who are just outside the relegation zone. There's only 19 points splitting 6th to 21st. You know, there's a slip of paper between these teams. I mean, like there's 7 points between us in 6th and Sheffield Wednesday in 13th. That potentially is a week in the championship. So Sheffield Wednesday in 13th could be above us, who are currently in 6th, inside 7 days of the championship, because of the nature of this league. I just don't think there's. I honestly, I look at most of the teams in this league, and I think you've all got decent players, but you've also got huge deficiencies. I mean, I look through most of the teams in this division, and I think there's probably a player in most squads that I'd take, and we're 6th. And I don't think I've necessarily felt that way before. Maybe Derby would be a bit of a tough call, although I do like the goalkeeper. But I mean, even Plymouth, who are bottom, I'd take that centre half that they've got. Katic, I think he's absolutely class. So I think you look through this division, and there's just not that much between them. The 3 relegated teams, Luton have obviously had a horrible season, but yourselves and Sheffield United obviously have got a lot more firepower than everybody else. You look at the business you were able to do in January, and it was a real flexing of the muscles. Leeds lost a couple in the sort of in the summer window, but they replaced really, really well, and they've kept a lot of the core of that side, and they've used loans really well. They've got players that most other teams, couldn't dream of, and Sunderland are just a really clever team, and they've done some really clever recruitment with some young players, and they've built a side up over a number of years. They've used their academy really well as well. And I think, Sunderland are the blueprint for everybody else, really, because unless you've got parachute payments, the reality is you can't do what Sheffield United and Leeds have done. Sunderland are the only one, a bit like Ipswich were last season, that gives the rest of us hope that you can break into the monopoly of the relegated teams. But I just don't think there's much between anybody in the league. I think we're a decent side, and we've got some good players, but even we've got little bits of deficiency, and we're learning under a new manager. Where our season is going to be defined is, I mean, it sounds obvious because I'm going to say all the games here, but we need to win our home games because we play most of the teams at the bottom. We play we play Hull, Derby, and Luton in our remaining home games. We have got Sunderland and Watford as well. But you look at our away games, and we go to yourselves, obviously, who are not a rival, but then Norwich, who still hold playoff aspirations, Bristol City, who are a big challenger, and Coventry, who are the team directly above us. Our away games are must not lose outside of Tuesday. Because we can't allow a 3-point swing with Norwich, Bristol City, and Coventry. So you go to those games, they'll be thinking we have to win these games, and we will be thinking we can't lose these games.
Yeah.
And then we go into our home games, and we really need to be getting 3 points. That being said, if we go to someone like Coventry or Bristol City or Norwich and win, particularly Bristol City and Norwich, we probably put away a challenger. So they're massive, massive games for us, our away games. And then our home form just needs to keep on trucking because it's been pretty good of late. Beaten QPR, beaten Oxford. Obviously, Blackburn was a blip, but then we beat Sheffield Wednesday, beat Portsmouth. We have won 4 of our last 5 at home, so we need to keep doing that and then not lose to the teams around us, ideally.
With all that, do you think you get into the playoffs? I know I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, but do you think you get into the playoffs?
Yeah, I do, probably, because I think we're one of the best 6 squads in this division, and I think and couple that with the fact that we've got a really good manager. Yeah, I think we probably do. But equally, look at the weekend. That we're okay. We've played badly, but we're kind of cruising at 1-0 after a penalty, and then the referee sends Darnell Furlong off for what I believe was a block, and we have to dig in and win that game 1-0. That just as easily could have been 2 points or even 3 points dropped. It doesn't take much. If the referee gives Coventry a dodgy penalty or something like that, that could swing our entire season. So yes, I do think we will just about have enough. But equally speaking, because we play Coventry away, because we play Bristol City away, because we play Norwich away, it only takes a bad red card or a linesman missing an offside or even just somebody pulling a worldie out the bag to turn your entire season. I think it's going to be so tight. I think I have to say I think Sky are going to absolutely get their money's worth out of the Championship this season because I don't see anything being done and dusted. I think the top 2 will go to the wire. I think the 5th and 6th place will absolutely go to the wire, and I do think that the bottom is a little bit more likely to be the bottom 3 as it stands, but I do kind of fancy one of those 3 to put a bit of a run together and make that interesting as well. So I think it's gonna. I think we will. If on the basis of probabilities, I would say yes, we will get in. But like, what would I be giving us? Sort of like a 60% chance, maybe something like that. It's not one of these where I think we're nailed on.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, definitely. I've not really paid too much attention to the playoff race because obviously I'm focused on the top two. But just before this show, I was looking at it thinking, Jesus, like you mentioned, everyone down to Sheffield Wednesday is going to fancy the chances of at least potentially putting a run together and getting into it. So we'll see what happens there. I'm looking forward to it. I know you've mentioned it already, but I want to quickly go into a little bit more detail about it on your perspective and West Brom fans' perspective on it. But the Carlos Corberán sort of like leaving sort of that thing, I presume everyone was very disappointed. I think he was the best manager in the Championship over the last couple of years, and I think he's earned the right to go to a club like Valencia. But obviously, you brought Tony Mowbray in now. What's the fans' feelings around Mowbray?
Oh, they love him. Certainly, if you're old enough to remember the last time he was here, which I mean, I worked with him at the club, so I certainly am. And if you were around when Mowbray was here the last time, you love him because you remember you would probably have to go back to almost you'd probably have to go back to sort of like the late 70s almost to find football that we enjoyed more than under Tony Mowbray, because that season where we lifted the Championship trophy was magnificent. And we were, for your older listeners who can remember about the early to mid 90s, we were like the Keegan's Newcastle of the Championship. We didn't necessarily blow teams away every week, although we did that on occasion, but we won games 4-3 and 3-2, and they were balmy, and we scored late goals, and we had we played with Jonathan Greening as our most defensive midfielder, and we were a magnificent team to watch. We were brilliant. We had Kevin Phillips up front who just bagged goal after goal, and it was genuinely some of, if not the most enjoyable football I've ever watched at the Hawthorns. Certainly well and truly up there with what Ozzy Ardiles served up in the third tier and stuff like that. It was brilliant. I think some of the younger fans were a little bit more skeptical, if I'm honest. I think they saw an older guy coming in who they probably viewed him as a bit of a Championship journeyman. But the reality is, you look at the jobs he's had, and other than a fleeting spell at Birmingham, which didn't go great, but then he didn't have time to put his stamp on it before his health problems obviously put an end to that. Where has he actually done poorly in his last few jobs? Unbelievable job at Sunderland, took them into the playoffs. I know you won't thank me for saying this, but he did a great job at Blackburn, and took them from the third tier into the second tier, kept them up, and then kind of higher and higher league places each year. He's just done good jobs, generally speaking, in this league, and there's no reason to suggest that he will do anything else as Albion manager. I think we were all disappointed to see Corberán go, because he took us from the brink. We were going down to League One when he came in. We went bottom of the league in his first game. We were an absolute basket case. We had an owner who was taking money out of the club as loans and wasn't paying them back, and we were in financial peril. We were in peril in terms of our league position. We had a squad that didn't look interested and wasn't playing together. We were the only place, and it can happen. Look at Luton this season. Yeah. Just because you've come down doesn't give you any divine right to stay in the Championship. We were heading to League One under Steve Bruce, make no bones about that. He came in, and not only did he keep us up, he took us to within one match of the playoffs. Then the next season, he got us in the playoffs, and he'd done a great job. But Albion fans have, for a very long time, again, probably dating back to the 70s and Ron Atkinson's team, had an expectation of the way a West Bromwich Albion team should play. And Corberán was always a bit more pragmatic than that. And you can't knock it. His methods got results. But as the expectation grew and Albion fans started to take it probably unreasonably so. Some of them started to take it as we should be getting into the playoffs, even though we were massively reducing the age of the squad and massively reducing the wage bill. I think the feeling around Corberan and the slightly more pragmatic football was, in certain quarters, probably growing a little bit tense, and not from all fans, but there was certainly a pocket of the vocal minority who wanted us to play a bit more expansively. And it was interesting when Corberan left that Andrew Nestor, our chief executive, or sporting director, I should say, made it very, very clear that he was going after a manager that would bring a more expansive style to the club. So I think Tony Mowbray coming in was the right man at the right time. I'm very glad we didn't get Luke Williams from Swansea. I think that would have been an absolutely disastrous appointment. And yeah, I think he's been greeted very, very warmly by the older element of our fan group. I think some of the younger fans who can't remember the title winning teams of sort of like the late noughties probably needed a little bit more convincing, but I would like to think that anybody who needed convincing has been over the last 3 games.
Yeah, fair enough. You mentioned there it's kind of like a more expansive style. Tell me, how does he set you up then? Is it like free-flowing attacking football? How do you play under Tony Mowbray?
We're still sort of adapting a little bit, and we're still working out ways to play. I mean, we've brought in Adam Armstrong, and I don't think we've quite figured out what to do with him yet, to be honest with you. And so it is a little bit more attacking, and Isaac Price has been the big addition in there because he's gone in the 10, and he is far too good for this league. He is an incredible player. I mean, if you want one to watch tomorrow night, it's Isaac Price. He is he is the star at the moment. He's playing unbelievably well. He hasn't changed a massive amount, to be honest with you. I just think he's taken the shackles off a couple of players. I think that's all it really is. I think players like Moa and Malumbi, who might have been asked to sit a little bit deeper under Corberan, are just being allowed to go a little bit more. But he hasn't changed the shape, especially. I mean, we were kind of playing with 2 up top under at the end under Corberan, but Josh Maja's injury has kind of put paid to that a little bit. And Isaac Price coming in and doing so unbelievably well in the 10 kind of means he has to play a bit at the moment. But yeah, I don't think he hasn't come in and sort of wielded a sledgehammer and undone a lot of what Corberan did. And what was interesting in his post-match after QPR, Mowbray actually praised Corberan and said, like, you know, a lot of the defensive shape that we showed and just clicked into against QPR, Corberan has to take a lot of the credit for because it's a pre-existing thing from the last coach. So yeah. I think he realizes that there's elements where it ain't broke, so don't fix it. And I think he's just, I think what he's just trying to do is get a little bit more out of the midfielders, get a little bit more out of the wide men. Mikey Johnston in particular seems to have a bit more freedom. I don't think he wants to mess with. I think Callum Styles has a bit more freedom at left back as well, but I don't think he wants to crazily mess with our defensive shape. I just think he wants a little bit more creativity out of the sort of attacking players, and look, he's got more options as well. And it's worth saying that Corberan didn't have Adam Armstrong. He largely didn't have Daryl DK for most of his tenure as manager. DK's now back, and he's a bench option at the moment because he's not quite at that point where he's starting games. But Mowbray's got Will Lancashire, who we didn't have. He's obviously got Isaac Price, who Corberan didn't have. Corberan had what was a very cheaply assembled squad in the summer. People like Ratchich and Frabotta and Devante Cole were not anybody's ideal in terms of recruitment. But they were cheap, and because of where we were in terms of sort of PSR and all that sort of thing, we had to go cheap. Fortunately, because we managed to do some bits around a loan being repaid, around Dar O'Shea moving from U to Ipswich, which obviously we took a little bit of the sell on from, and Alex Palmer going to Ipswich, who obviously because he's an academy product, it's 100% profit. And we also sold Mo Fall to Wrexham towards the end of the window as well in the summer, which again 100% profit. It's just given us that little bit more freedom to do bits in the winter window and spend money on a loan fee for Adam Armstrong that I don't think we would have had, spend a fee on Isaac Price that I don't think we otherwise would have had. So we're working frugally at the moment, and people don't like to see academy products leave the club. But unfortunately, the way PSR is set up, because it generates 100% profit, as opposed to if you sell someone you've bought, you have to minus whatever you've paid for them or whatever is left to be paid. It's sort of like amortizing it across the period of the contract. It makes sense to sell academy products. And look, there will be a point where Tom Fellows has to go as well for the same reasons, and fans won't be happy. But what you will see off the back of Tom Fellows going will be a lot, if and when it happens, will be a lot more freedom to maneuver in the transfer market. And I trust this ownership to spend that money well, because the money that they spent in the winter window on Isaac Price looks incredibly well spent at this point.
Yeah, well, I were going to ask you about ones to watch, but obviously you mentioned that now, Sir Isaac Price, so I will look out for him. One thing I do want to mention, I know you've mentioned Darnell Furlong already. I got sent off at the weekend and will be missing. Any other big players for West Brom that are missing for injury or suspension?
Not as far as we know, really. As I say, there was enormous hints in the post-match press conference that that Jason Molumby would be left out so that he avoids getting that 2-match ban. So whilst he is available, I don't really expect him to play, which is a huge blow for us. Furlong, look, when you said sort of like what could stop you getting the playoffs, our defensive options are our biggest problem, because Shemi Ajayi is out for something close to the season. We obviously let Caleb Taylor go back to Wickham on loan, and with Darnell Furlong now suspended, we pretty much and Gianluca Frabotta, nobody seems to trust. He's played 65 minutes in the whole season. We're basically down to Holgate, Bartley, Hegem, and Styles as our only available defenders. Other than, as I say, Frabotta, who nobody seems to have any real faith in. So we're really light on the ground in terms of defensive options. Long-term absences, Josh Maja remains out, and I think he will be back after the international break. And Jed Wallace has been ruled out for a few weeks as well. Again, these are not new things. He was out before that game. So in terms of attacking options, Maja and Wallace missing, Ajayi out long term, which was a blow we had a couple of weeks back. But Furlong adding to those defensive issues really does only leave us with 4 fit and available defenders. And as I say, I would expect Diakite to play over Molumby to try and avoid him getting that 10th yellow card and a 2-match suspension.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what Mowbray does then with that one. I will be looking out for the team sheet for that one. Let's get on to the actual game itself then and have a look at some predictions, please, mate. Obviously, Tuesday night under the turf, more lights. We have suddenly started picking up form and started putting teams to the sword. However, you've had some good results recently, and I think a lot of Burnley fans are looking at this one and thinking this could be one of the ones we slip up in, maybe a 0-0 or a 1-1. What are your thoughts, mate, and what are your predictions, please?
Well, look, I mean, it's an incredibly difficult game for us. Any game against any of the top 4 is really difficult. I think the way we played at Leeds gives me a lot more confidence. I would be a lot happier, nothing against Mason Holgate, but I would be a lot happier going into this game if it was Darnell Furlong facing Marcus Edwards than Mason Holgate. And I think that's an area where you will hurt us. I really do, because not having our first choice right back against possibly the best left winger. I mean, let's be fair, he's a Champions League footballer. The best winger in the league is a massive, massive blow. Look, I'm not gonna come on an opposition podcast and predict us to lose like that. That would, especially after going to Leeds and getting a point, and especially after sort of like such a battling display and 4 unbeaten. I just can't sit here and say we'll lose. We have played the teams in the top 4 6 times this season, and 6 times we have drawn. Albion and Burnley have drawn a total of 30 games between them this season. So it just seems I've got to call a draw, haven't I? I mean, it's everything in the data suggests that we are 2 of the drawsiest teams around. We draw with the top 4. So I think a 1-1 is where I will go with my prediction, but I'll openly admit there's a little bit of heart ruling head about that one.
Yeah, to be fair, I think you make a good point about Edwards and stuff. That is the difference between us now and the Burnley that you saw early in the season, as I'm sure you're aware. What I will say is, while I completely agree, it's the most logical answer to go for a draw. And you mentioned the draws we drew earlier in the season, but how that was a draw, I do not know. That we scored a perfectly good goal in that match. I think even you said in your analysis that you sent me the questions. Why on earth was that ruled out? Even you guys don't know what we don't know why ruled out.
It was a total misprint, mate. That was an assault.
It
was an assault on Callum Styles. Absolutely. How that lad is walking, I do not know. No, it's a shocking decision. If that was against us, I would have lost my head. It's a dreadful, dreadful decision. Yeah. No, look, we 100% got away with one that day. And look, you can't. I mean, what I would say is you can't. It was early enough in the game that you can't say for sure you would have gone on to have won the game, because we still would have had time to come back. But there was no real indication in that game that we were likely to score a goal. You probably would have won the game 1-0, given your defensive record. It was a shocking decision. But then again, that's referees in this league, isn't it? You get them
all leagues.
But I mean, I'd love Premier League fans who whinge about their referees to come and watch a bit of Championship football, because the referees in this league are pretty awful. I mean, like I say, I didn't think that was a sending off for Darnell Furlong at the weekend, and that's left us without our first choice right back for 3 massive games, to be honest with you. So, unfortunately, referees at this level seem to influence games from time to time where they shouldn't. That having been said, it doesn't mean I want VAR, and I think I'm sure we're both on the same page that you would happily sit here and take 2 points less over the course of the season than have VAR introduced every week into the Championship.
Yeah, I mean, ask me again at the end of the season if we miss out on the top 2 by 1 point, then I might change my mind. But no, I do agree. Like, I hate VAR. Obviously, I've experienced it as a Premier League fan. I watched an incident the other day that took 8 minutes to.
The one in the FA Cup. Yeah, it was embarrassing.
It's just bizarre. Like that, the term clear and obvious. That was. I think we need to forget that. But that's what they said originally, and they're not using it for clear and obvious errors now. They're using it for every little thing. That's the problem. I don't mind the technology. I just don't feel like that we, as a sport, have learned how to use it. I think the referees are awful with it.
I just think, without sort of going down a rabbit hole here, I just think there's too much subjectivity in football. Like, what is a foul to you might not be a foul to me. What is a red card to me might not be a red card to you, and that's true of referees. What Michael Oliver looks at and says that's a red card. Howard Webb, head of the referees, might look at and say, I wouldn't have given that. But that's the subjective nature of football. And I actually wouldn't mind VAR for things that are black and white. Like, has a ball gone out of play? Is that player offside? Because I hate it when on commentary they say, he's got that just about right. It's like, no, he's either got it right or he hasn't. Like, it's either offside or it isn't. I don't mind it for stuff like that. Or if you've given a foul, and there's a question mark of whether it was in or outside the penalty area. Again, that is black and white. It's indisputable. There are lines on the pitch you can't argue with.
Yeah.
What I don't want it for is things like sendings off, unless it's like an absolute assault. You know what I mean? Like where somebody's punched someone off the ball or something like that, or fouls. Anything that's subjective. And the handball rule just needs to get in the bin. I mean, it's just embarrassing now.
It seems to change every week. That
So I think the problem with because you look at it, for example, in tennis or cricket, and there's no argument. With tennis, it's used for the lines on the pitch. For cricket, you've got like the snicko and like has it made contact with the bat. These things they're not a matter of subjectivity, but in football there is so much subjectivity to a referee's job that I don't think it helps things to go to a VAR and look at things in slow motion and stuff like that. I just think it confuses things more than it helps. And I actually think we've had more daft decisions since VAR came in than before it.
Yeah, I agree. There's too many grey areas in football. Obviously, we don't want to talk about this now for the next 20 minutes. But if they are going to bring VAR in and do it across the board, then they need to get rid of the grey areas, which is kind of impossible when you look at the sport. But it is what it is. Just to go back to the predictions, I agree in a sense that I think it will be tight. I think it's going to be similar to the game at the Hawthorns earlier in the season, but I'm hoping and I'm praying, and again, maybe it's more heart over head, because I do agree the logical answer when you look at the draws and the way the two teams are and your record against the top four, a draw might be likely. But I'm hoping with the likes of Marcus Edwards, and you've made me a bit more confident talking about your right-back issues as well. Marcus Edwards, I'm hoping he has the ability to unlock you, just like he did against Luton and Sheffield Wednesday. And I think we just nick it 1-0.
But you've also got to remember, we've got an ex-Blackburn centre-forward up front.
Is he? Yeah. Does he start much for you then these days?
Armour, he's our first choice centre-forword, so he will start. Yeah, he will start, and he's not at the best of times. Actually, he scored in his first game, and then that was his first goal since with the penalty against QPR. But there's always something about that lad who's represented your rivals that I would be surprised if Armour didn't come to Turf Moor with the bit between his teeth, because I imagine every touch he takes will get booed.
Well, it probably will, but again, it's coming up again against Esteve and CG Egan-Riley, so we'll see. It's the best defence in the division, but yeah, he will be getting booed. He will become the pantomime villain, but we'll see what happens there with that one. But fingers crossed, mate. For us, obviously, we managed to get it over the line. But mate, just before I let you go, do you want to let everyone know where they can find you and your Albion stuff if they want to take a quick look beforehand?
Absolutely. Albion Analysis, wherever you get your podcasts, really, Spotify, Apple are the usual places, but, we put it out through Acast, so it pretty much goes everywhere. Wherever you get your podcasts from, you should be able to find it. And then if you do want to check out our Substack, and there is an article from your good self on there previewing the game, which I believe should be free to view. Some of the content is free, some of it is subscription only, but we usually make the opposition view free to view. So just search Albion Analysis Substack or type in Albion Analysis on Substack, and you will find the preview content there, which will give you some thoughts ahead of the game. And obviously we will we don't do a preview show as such, but we will be doing a post-match show on Tuesday night, so hopefully that will be live late Tuesday night, early hours of Wednesday morning, if you want to hear the Albion perspective on what unfolded at Turf Moor.
Yeah, definitely. I recommend it. Go and check it out. Chris, good luck for the rest of the season. Obviously after Tuesday, and also not if we meet in the playoffs, because we could be sat here in May having the same conversation if we finish third and you finish sixth.
Yeah, well, look, honestly, not that I don't want to. I don't want to sort of wish you luck for Tuesday night. Obviously, I hope you lose, but I do wish you luck for the rest of the season. Not least because I had an anti-post bet on, and I thought I'd back Sheffield United top 6, but I haven't. I've backed them to make the playoffs, which means if they go up automatically, my bet is settled as a loser. So I really hope you finish above them.
Cheers, mate. Hopefully we can do that for you. But thanks for coming on, mate. It's been a pleasure. And I hope I don't see you next season. But I mean that in the nicest possible way.
Well, I hope I hope we do, but it's both in the Premier League.
Yeah, to be fair, yeah, I'm used to saying that to teams that aren't within a shout of going up, but obviously you guys do. Yeah, I hope I see you next season, both as Premier League clubs. So thanks for coming on, mate.
My pleasure.